Welcome to MINDSHOCK. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and it's that time of the year again, September 11th, and a lot of unanswered questions on this particular day in the year 2001. We're going to be getting to some aspects that have not been discussed, and of course taking questions from the live chat in the live Q&A here. A lot of astute listeners on the MINDSHOCK podcast, where logic and reason reign supreme. Nowhere to be found in the mainstream media, of course, but here on MINDSHOCK, logic and reason rule the day, where we examine all topics, all theories in typical MINDSHOCK fashion, attempting not to fall for any silly logical fallacies. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, like and comment and share. If you're not getting the notifications, that's how the YouTube algo works. Or you could just go to youtube.com/MINDSHOCK, or you could sign up for the Patreon. There is a free tier, and you'll get free updates for all lives and all podcasts, all new podcasts dropping. You could also check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. So, we got the usual suspects in here. Run Boston Bear, Jess Palmer, Heracles, I Am Ion's Cat. And then we also have Sander in here asking about the Odigo messages. We could start with those. The Odigo messages. Run Boston Bear says 9/11 is Jesus' birthday. Have you ever heard that before? No. I thought wasn't it April? So April 1st is allegedly the real New Year. Some people think that coincides with Jesus' birthday. Haven't heard that it was 9/11. Supposedly 9/11 is some kind of satanic holiday of sacrifice, though. But anyway, we could start with the Odigo messages because it kind of ties in with one of the main things I want to go over tonight. Obviously, this is YouTube, so there's only... we don't have that much leeway for discussion. YouTube not a fan of free speech anymore. Used to be. Back in the good old days of YouTube. What was that, up to 2010, 2012-ish? YouTube used to be a free speech platform. No longer the case, so we can only discuss certain things on here. But the Odigo messages, for those that don't know, I mean, there's so many rabbit holes. And here on MINDSHOCK, of course, I do not claim anything is true or untrue for the triggered give coincidence theorists that, for whatever reason, they do like this channel as well. Call them confused fans, if you will. I do not claim any theories are true or untrue. We simply examine all claims for veracity with logic and reason at the forefront. So, Odigo says workers were warned of attack. Odigo, the instant messaging service, says that 2 of its workers received messages 2 hours before the Twin Towers attack on September 11th, predicting the attack would happen. And the company has been cooperating with Israeli and American law enforcement, including the FBI, in trying to find the original sender of the message, predicting the attack. Quite curious. Definitely curious, that's for sure. Now, there's really not a lot of information on this. So, if this truly was investigated properly, Did they actually find out who sent the messages? Obviously, that would never be revealed, so this whole thing was buried. Or were they simply not able? Now, Odigo Messenger was an early social networking service based on instant messaging, and the founder was Moshe Zilberstein. I wonder if he's related to Larry Silverstein, Lucky Larry. The headquarters of Odigo was coincidentally in Herzliya Pitua in Israel. So Zilberstein, not Silverstein, is the founder of Odigo Messenger. That's quite curious. I mean, we can review Lucky Larry, just for those that don't know, the coincidence theorists. I mean, obviously, coincidence theorists just love 9/11. I mean, coincidence theorists just really love 9/11. Because, I mean, look at this. Look at Lucky Larry here. Lucky Larry the owner of the World Trade Center, on 9/11, 2001, Larry just so happened to be absent from work because of a doctor's appointment. Just so happened. He later claimed that the appointment was canceled. And I wonder if he's got receipts for that. So, like, he wasn't the one who... So, what happened there? And rather than returning to the top of the tower for his usual breakfast, he decided to walk around New York City. Larry's family was also absent from work that day and escaped harm. So 9/11 was just a family day off for the Silverstein family. Again, possibly no relation to Zilberstein, the founder of Odigo Messenger. So his daughter and son, who was supposedly running late. So his son didn't take a day off. He just happened to be the perfect amount late not to make it in. Lucky Larry was also fortunate enough to have recently taken out a $3.5 billion insurance policy only several weeks before the attacks, July 2001. He went on to attempt to claim that amount twice since there were two attacks. Luckily for Larry, he and his family managed to escape death and profit billions from the fall of the towers. And once again, for all the coincidence theorist, authority-worshipping cultist goofs who are just spiraling all over social media today and every 9/11 or any time 9/11's brought up, these clueless goofs spiraling, absolutely spiraling anytime anyone brings up basic physics in relation to 9/11. Now, we went over this on many of the 9/11 podcasts, but for anybody that hasn't seen them, we could just a super quick physics recap. Just super quick physics recap. So before we even do the physics recap, let's take a stroll down memory lane here. So the Twin Towers were specifically built to withstand the impacts of planes, unlike all these other buildings that were hit by planes that didn't have fireproof steel, that weren't specifically designed to withstand impacts from planes. They all remain standing. But the Twin Tower, the Twin Towers, specifically built to withstand impacts of planes, you know, and this is in New York City, the capital of the world. We're not talking about some of these short-cutted skyscrapers in third world countries that remain standing after being hit by planes, accidents supposedly. They all remain standing. Cheapo materials. I mean, not first world countries, not built to withstand the impacts of planes. They all remain standing. But the Twin Towers, specifically designed for this. And the goofs run for the hills anytime this is brought up. Now, again, I am not alleging any particular entity did this. I am not alleging the planes were physical objects or holograms. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. We're just going over empirically verifiable information like this newspaper article, National Post, Wednesday, September 12th, 2001. So these buildings were specifically designed to withstand impacts of planes. And again, there's only one other building. There's only one building in history that collapsed by being hit by a plane because the plane hit the base of the building. And I don't believe it was the skyscraper. We went over this on the previous episodes. I could bring it up if you guys are interested. There's not that many. I forgot what country it was in. But there was some kind of accident where a plane hit the first floor of a building, and that building collapsed because the plane wiped out the entire first floor, which makes sense. I mean, we're talking common sense. We don't need to go into any laws of physics. But any other plane that has hit a building, there was no collapse. And again, these are all buildings that were not built to withstand the impacts of planes. They all remained standing. But somehow, the Twin Towers, I mean, again, this is just such basics, though, because why would the building collapse if the plane hit, you could conceive if the plane was a different type of plane, it wasn't just soft aluminum, or it was multiple planes that hit the top of a building, conceivably, from the point of impact and above, that could have fallen off to the side if it was that compromised. But the building wouldn't just free fall collapse exactly like controlled demolition that looks exactly like bombs going off on all the floor, and all the witnesses who were there said they heard the bombs going off floor by floor. But anyway, continuing on with the physics here. I mean, what is this, second grade math here? Is this second grade math? So we're talking about 100,000 tons of steel hit by a plane carrying 0.039% its weight in kerosene, pulverized 110 stories into a smoldering heap in less than 10 seconds. So 1.5 pounds of steel burns 300% of its weight of kerosene and never weakens. Now, furthermore, in this narrative, the official narrative, which is the true conspiracy theory, that these hijackers were able to do this and all laws of physics were magically violated that day. So apparently there's no flight recorders, there are no multi-ton Boeing turbofan engines, but there are unscathed paper passports. We do have the magic passport. So why didn't they just build the towers out of passport paper? Because then they would just never collapse no matter what. I mean, is there anything stronger in this world than passport paper? I mean, I don't know. I mean, according to the official narrative, I mean... Yeah, Pedro Picasso in the chat saying, no pilot could make the maneuvers required to crash the planes into the building, so it had to be remote control or a hologram. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to go into that. Did we go into that on the previous one? One of the things I spent a lot of time is the decibel level. Because I know a few people that were there that day, and they did not hear a plane. Now, again, well, it's just basic common sense here. When you're outside and a plane flies overhead, even if it's much higher than at the point that it struck the World Trade Center, you can hear it, and it's quite loud. It's disturbingly loud. So at the height that it would have been to crash into the World Trade Center, it would have been louder than a gunshot. We went over the exact decibel levels previously. So it would have also shattered the windows. I mean, you know, when an opera singer is hitting those high notes, that can literally shatter glasses around the opera singer. Now, this is exponentially louder with more vibration. So the windows in the surrounding buildings should have shattered just from the plane banking right next to it, if it was a physical object actually performing that bank maneuver, or even without the bank, just flying straight into the building. The first one, I believe, did not do the banking maneuver. That is, according to Boeing engineers, they verified that it couldn't make that angle turn that it made. And again, this is not just Boeing engineers. On video, there are 1970s videos. I don't know, did I play one on the first 9/11 podcast I did? Where there's videos of them testing the planes for safety to see what would happen. And the engines would actually burn up because they can't withstand the plane physically, because it's it's made of cheap materials. But according to John Lear, even top secret planes at that time couldn't perform that bank maneuver. But anyway, the decibel levels are a giveaway. Because in the videos, we played the video of the plane hitting the first and second plane. You could actually see people in the foreground. They have zero reaction until after the alleged plane hit, when there's the explosion. So they hear the explosion, but they don't hear the plane, which would have been deafening at that height and at that speed. It would have been absolutely deafening. And I know people who were there, they heard no plane. I had them ask a bunch of people too, and they couldn't find a single person who audibly heard the plane or saw the plane. They didn't see the planes either. But I don't know how many of them were looking though, so let's put that aside, because I don't know anybody that was looking at the building who didn't see the plane. They all heard and saw the impact of whatever, whether it was just a bomb, or if it was some kind of physical object, whatever. They heard and saw that. But nobody heard or saw any plane. And this is all anecdotal again, admittedly anecdotal. I just asked because I was curious. So, I mean, millions of people in New York, not a single one of them heard the plane before the alleged impact. I find that curious. I just find it curious. All laws of physics violated that day. Curious. And then, of course, for the goofs, for the scientism cultist goofs who like peer-reviewed scientific papers, why not? Let's go to Europhysics News. Volume 47, number 4, July-August 2016. 15 years later, on the physics of high-rise building collapses. So this is from Brigham Young University, McMaster University, mechanical designer engineer in the aerospace industry, and Architects and Engineers for Truth all participated in this. Highly credentialed individuals for the scientism cultists and the authority-worshipping bootlickers who find such things convincing, as well as peer review, which is, of course, just appeal to popularity and appeal to authority, logical fallacy rolled into one. What's the conclusion of this particular peer-reviewed scientific paper here? It bears repeating that fires have never caused the total collapse of a steel-framed high-rise before or since 9/11. Did we witness an unprecedented event 3 separate times on September 11th, 2001? Not once, not twice, but thrice the laws of physics were violated. That's kind of a big ask. Because if it was just once, I mean, it's conceivable there could have been some kind of anomalous situation, right? I mean, maybe there was some kind of interdimensional rift causing something. I mean, who knows? But to be asked, that's a big ask for all laws of physics to be violated thrice? Thrice? That's kind of a lot. The NIST reports, which attempted to support that unlikely conclusion, failed to persuade a growing number of architects, engineers, and scientists. Instead, the evidence points overwhelmingly to the conclusion that all three buildings were destroyed by controlled demolition. Given the far-reaching implications, it is morally imperative that this hypothesis be the subject of a truly scientific and impartial investigation by responsible authorities. And again, the thing with all the goofs who keep citing NIST, I mean, that's like allowing the serial killer to present his own evidence of exonerating himself at a courtroom trial. Like, you're literally trusting the accused. Now, maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe they are. Maybe they are. But how clueless, like how dumb is it to trust that the accused is going to be impartial and objective? And even if they are, like, wouldn't you want some kind of neutral third-party investigation? I mean, the level of goofery that coincidence theorists sink to regarding 9/11, I mean, it really is something to behold. All right, let me catch up in the chat here before I get to the main thing I want to talk about that I don't remember anybody talking about, because this is MindShock, and we're going to MindShock land. HW says their men are faceless cowards. We have known war. There were all wars on foreign soil, except one Sunday we were attacked on a peaceful morning. Thousands of our own civilians were attacked. "9/11 was a Tuesday." Are you referring to 9/11 or something else? Okay. HW also said, their goal is not making money. The goal is to impose its radical beliefs on people everywhere. They practice a fringe extremism that is rejected by their own religion, scholars, and believers. I mean, also, how could we forget the coincidence stack of 9/11 is stratospheric. I mean, not only on September 10th was there a 2.3, I've heard a few different numbers. I've even heard over 3 trillion, but anywhere between 2.3 and 3 point something trillion dollars were unaccounted for. So literally the day before, Rumsfeld's announcing that it's unaccounted for, and then magically, even though there's no video, and all the... So again, the laws of physics weren't just violated thrice. That thrice violation, that was just in New York. That was just in New York. I mean, the Pentagon, the ask in the Pentagon, I mean, was this all an Illuminati humiliation ritual? To see how many clueless goofs believe just complete, utter nonsense? So pilots who can't even fly a Cessna are doing 270-degree descending corkscrews, lining up to the Pentagon, all coincidentally not captured on video, where the metrics of the plane don't even line up with the damage caused, and coincidentally, they hit the accounting office where supposed evidence could be found of where these trillions are. So coincidentally, the only part of the Pentagon that's hit is where you would be able to trace where that money went. I mean, that's just an interesting coincidence. What a coinky dink. And of course, none of the physics line up. And then you have, I mean, there's Bigfoot videos with better resolution than the Pentagon security. I mean, the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot footage from the 60s is clearer than this. I mean, I mean, it's much clearer than this, and this is the wrong timestamp on it, too. So you have the most secure facility in the world. They can't even get their timestamp correct on their security footage. Like, is this all one giant Illuminati humiliation ritual where the powers that be, the string pullers, whatever you want to call them, they're just sitting back and laughing at the goofs that actually believe this? I mean, the burden of proof is on positive claims. Like, who believes this nonsense? I mean, maybe it's true. Maybe there's an invisible flying spaghetti monster that we need to pay taxes to in the sky, and it's going to kill us all if we don't pay the taxes. Who's going to pay the taxes? Did everybody pay the invisible flying spaghetti monster today? Did everybody pay them? Maybe they're real. I don't know if there's invisible flying spaghetti monsters up in the sky. I'm not saying they're not real, but I mean, that's a big ask. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Pedro Picasso says, what about the lies that remote control planes were available in 2006 when in fact they started testing them in 1946? I've never heard the claim that they that they only became available in 2006. They actually tested 747s and 757s decades prior, admittedly. I mean, these are videoed tests. There are no pilots. Those are the tests I referred to earlier, where they actually tested at what top speed the planes could bank at for emergency maneuvers, and it's nowhere near the bank that was performed on the second impact. Not to mention, obviously, the best pilots in the world can't replicate that in simulators. And supposedly a bunch of drugged up guys that couldn't even fly a single engine Cessna performed the greatest maneuvers in the history of aviation. I mean, this is literally like believing there's a flying spaghetti monster that you gotta pay taxes to. Like, it's just weird. It's kind of weird. Kill the Bank says, if the news spreads the rumor that there were planes and kept feeding it in your head, even the folks there would remember seeing planes. But they didn't. Everybody I asked and everybody they asked, I mean, we're talking about dozens of people, which is not a lot. There was probably 1 million people, literally. At least 1 million. I mean, there's what, around 9 to 10 million people, 7 million people live in the area, and a few more million commute. There's literally millions of people. Maybe there are some that said they saw planes. But every first-hand account that I've heard, or even second-hand account through trusted people that I know, nobody said they saw a plane or heard a plane, which I think is even more damning. Because if it was flying that fast, I mean, you'd probably still see it. But if you weren't looking, because the people that I know that were there, they weren't looking in the direction. There were a few builders. They heard the impact. They said it was incredibly loud. But they did not hear it prior to the impact, which they also said was strange because they do hear planes that are flying not even that close, even smaller planes. So they do hear planes in the office that they work at, because I asked them, like, how often do you hear planes? You know, they said they hear planes probably a couple times a week that aren't even anywhere near as close to the height that those planes would have had to have been. So they can hear planes in their offices in the buildings around the World Trade Center, and they did not hear those planes that day, which would have been deafening with that kind of proximity. Justin Johnson says, plane crashes leave plane debris. That's a good point. You're going to be called crazy for mentioning that. But not this time. But the ID of the hijacker was found. Yeah, paper passports survived. I mean, it was barely even singed. Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess it still wouldn't be believable if it was completely destroyed to the point where you can barely tell it was a passport. But the fact that it was just about unscathed There was some goof in the chat. I think there was some goof in the chat here that was saying it somehow magically went out the window, even though the plane windows don't open. Like, that was the coincidence theorist argument, was that the passport flew out the window before the plane hit the impact, as if plane passengers are randomly rolling down their windows, as if plane windows can be rolled down. That's what this coincidence theorist goof said in the chat, and seemingly he was serious about it. Like, he was getting all triggered about it. He's like, that's easily explained. And even if 757 windows could be rolled down, why would the hijacker randomly throw his own like, he has nothing better to do? Isn't he using box cutters? Isn't he flying the plane? Like, he has nothing better to do than to throw the or somehow, how does the passport let's play pretend. Let's go to fantasy land where you can roll down the windows of airliners. Like, even if you could, like, people that are how often did somebody get into a car accident with a car where their license magically pops out the window and is completely unscathed when there's like a huge explosion? Like, if somebody drives into a gas station, the whole thing blows up. How many times has their unscathed license been found? Because at least the physics do allow to roll down a window in a car. But even if the window can be rolled down, has there ever been a case where a car drove into a building and exploded, and the license was found unscathed? I mean, just the level of goofery surrounding the coincidence theorists and their coping to try to somehow make sense of the narrative on the idiot box. Joyce says, aluminum does not slice through steel beams. Impossible. Well, even if it were possible, like, let's go to Fantasyland. Let's pretend the physics allow for that. Why would the wing be disappearing from multiple angles? I mean, I don't really want to go into the hologram theory. We went over that on previous episodes. I want to go over some new stuff today. But I just find it curious that the wing is disappearing from multiple angles, because originally, like, when I first saw this, I thought this was just a glitch in the video, and the coincidence theorists are, of course, saying, oh, that was just a glitch in that one angle. But it vanishes from multiple angles at the same moment. So even if we play fantasy and we say that soft aluminum can slice through steel beams, that still doesn't explain the lack of hearing the plane. I mean, that would be deafening. And that doesn't explain the disappearing wing. I mean, just the level of goofery here. The level of goofery. I mean, if you guys really want to get into this, I mean, it looks like they mistimed this, because like, it looks like the explosion was set off just a little late. Just a couple of frames. Because it's like a knife through butter. Like, what happens? Like, again, just do a basic test. Make a paper airplane and fly it into your wooden door. What's going to happen? Is the paper airplane going to slice through wood like a knife through butter? I don't think so. Call me crazy. But this does not appear how soft aluminum just glides straight through reinforced steel like a knife through butter. Call me crazy, but I don't know. This seems like a spaghetti monster narrative to me. It just screams spaghetti monster narrative. And once again, keep in mind, somehow this soft aluminum plane is slicing like a knife through butter, through reinforced steel and concrete. And yet, where are the indestructible flight recorders? They're nowhere to be found. Where are the turbofan engines? And yet the passports are easily found. Again, Is this some kind of Illuminati humiliation ritual where they just laugh at the goofs that believe this narrative? Now, again, maybe the narrative is true, but that's a big ask. And for the goofs that are saying that that's a weird angle, here's the knife through butter from a different angle. So we have multiple angles showing the same thing. I mean, that's a knife through butter. I mean, look at that. Knife through butter. They mistimed the explosion. And then, supposedly, according to one of the conspiracy theories, that another plane was supposed to hit Building 7. And when that didn't happen, either due to the hologram machine malfunctioning, they just pulled it anyway. But okay, that'll be it for the alleged hologram theory. So we're going to get into some new stuff. Let me just catch up with the chat, and then I'm going to go over something that nobody wants to talk about and how that affects what's going on here. Justin says, look into the jet fuel hoax. Pretty interesting. Yeah, that's a super deep rabbit hole. I've spent a little bit of time on it. I need to spend quite a bit more before doing a podcast on it, though. Les Xylophone says the Japanese use passport paper as windows. Kill the Bank says maybe the planes were made from the NASA 1960s aluminum. I mean, NASA had all that fancy technology that they lost. I mean, yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at this masterpiece of engineering. I mean, it's practically indestructible just to be able to make this trip. I mean, look at this piece of just indestructible material. Looks like a middle school art project. Maybe they did use some of this magic material that can slice through reinforced steel and concrete. Maybe they did use some of this NASA tech that they said they lost, but Boeing somehow got it. Like all their secret tech that they magically lost. Maybe that's what happened with the recent Boeing whistleblower that got killed. Maybe it was really over Boeing using NASA's allegedly lost tech for magic aluminum. And, I mean, I don't know how that explains the magic passport paper, but who knows? Maybe there's a conspiracy there. Maybe there is. Yeah, Sanders says, release the other 80 Pentagon video. Yeah, that's the other thing, too, with the Pentagon. A lot of goofs were like, oh, they don't have... Not only is the Pentagon the most secure building in the world, they only have one grainy video that... I mean, there's Bigfoot and ghost videos clearer than that. But obviously, there were at least a dozen... I don't know if... Were there actually 80? I saw that there were... Like, they listed a dozen of supposedly pretty clear security cameras from hotels and businesses pointed in exactly where the plane would have been. And for some reason, they don't release them. Heracles says, Bruce, touch on the project for a new American century. Is there something specific that ties into 9/11 for that? Tweak says maybe those hijackers were on board, but that is not proof that they were flying it. Well, sure, but is there proof that that alleged flight was even the flight that went into a building? Or that any flight went into a building? Kill the Bank says, weren't some of the hijackers found alive? I'm not. Are we allowed to discuss that on YouTube? I don't know if we can go into that on YouTube. Was that loose change? They identified a bunch of them, and some of them had non-common names for like because some Arabic names are common, kind of like John Smith in English, and some of them are not common. So there were a few of them that had not common names that they allegedly found. Allegedly, I do not claim anything is true or untrue. Oh, and for those that want more receipts on the Pentagon only being hit in the area of accounting, where they could have possibly tracked down what happened to the missing trillions, let me put that receipt on screen. Check out the 9/11 Jumbo podcast here on MindShock, where we go over all this stuff. I'm going to go over something new in a second. So the impact area, so this is regarding the Pentagon, included both the Navy Operations Center and the office complex of the National Guard Army Reserve. It was also the end of the fiscal year, coincidentally, and important budget information was in the damaged area. This is Arlington County After Action Report. And then from South Coast Today, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, December 20th, 01, most of those killed in the office called Resource Services Washington were civilian accountants, bookkeepers, and budget analysts. They were at their desks when American Airlines Flight 77 struck, or something struck. So that's curious because obviously military personnel, they're controlled. They're not going to leak anything. I mean, maybe some of them would, but in general, they follow orders. So the civilians that apparently, I mean, you would think they might have NDAs as well. But anyway, so the people that could check the budget, so the accountants, the bookkeepers, and the budget analysts were the ones that didn't skip work that day. So the ones that could actually come up with the receipts of where the money was, those were the ones killed. That's a curiosity. All coincidental, according to the coincidence theorist. I mean, the Pentagon is huge. I mean, that's the area that was struck out of all of that. Not to mention the top secret classified areas in the Pentagon that we know nothing about. But the only area that was struck was the accounting offices. It's curious. I mean, all coincidental, I'm sure. I'm sure it's all coincidental. Okay, so Heracles said that PNAC said it would be necessary to have a Pearl Harbor style event to introduce their plans. I actually haven't looked, so those are in official documents. I haven't looked at their documents in relation to 9/11. Kill the Bank says no black boxes found, right? There was, I think there was one conflicting report, but I don't believe any verified black boxes have ever been found. So the Flight 77 black box allegedly from the Pentagon crash, that was the one. Yeah, I mean, there's some conflicting narratives regarding the black boxes. They should have made the black boxes out of the passport paper, right? I mean, what's more indestructible than passport paper? Kill the Bank says, pretty sure the New American Century cover had the Twin Towers in a scope. I can bring that up. That was actually... There were a few government projects. So, Again, allegedly, there were NORAD drills that morning where they were doing exercises of hijacked planes flying into building. But this was the Emergency Response to Terrorism Self-Study, U.S. Department of Justice. I think I went over all that in the Jumbo podcast. But yeah, like I said, I want to go over some new stuff today. Tweak says nobody really talks about Dylan Klebold's birthday being September 11th, and he had threatened to crash a plane in New York. I believe that was Harris who threatened to crash the plane. I went over that in the Columbine series. Eric Harris said that if in his journal, he said if they could not get out of the country after the attack, they would hijack a plane and crash it into New York City. This is CNN.com, December 6, 2001. Actually, I can put the exact quote on the screen. I'll put the exact quote on the screen. I was actually going to bring up something in relation to Columbine that wasn't this, but this is yet another coincidence. I mean, how many coincidences are there regarding 9/11? Yeah, I'm going to put the exact quote on the screen in 1 second. Okay, here we go. Because a lot of the coincidence there is they think this is all made up. That's why I always have all the receipts in every podcast, whether we're talking Steven Seagal's accomplishments or what Eric Harris's journal said. So once again, this was CNN.com, December 6, 2001. One of the two teenage gunmen who killed 12 other students and a teacher before killing themselves in a 1999 attack on Columbine High School, described their plan in detail in his journals and said that if they could not get out of the country after the attack, they would hijack a plane and crash it into New York City. Who thinks that's kind of weird? So if they were being MK Ultra, we're going back to the MK Ultra theory. What else did they overhear? So Eric Harris allegedly, for those that don't know, Eric Harris actually was from New York State, and his father is supposedly high ranking in the Air Force, might have been involved in military projects. And there are theories that Eric Harris's MK Ultra started as a child at Plattsburgh Air Force Base. So who knows what if 9/11 was some kind of plan and it was in the know. So here we have Dylan Klebold's birthday is September 11th, 81. Eric Harris is writing in his journals about hijacking a plane and crashing in New York City. So here's the quote. The entries quoted here are verbatim. Verbatim. If by some weird as expletive luck, my and V survive and escape, we will move to some island somewhere, or maybe Mexico, New Zealand, or some exotic place where Americans can't get us, if there isn't such a place. then we will hijack a hell of a lot of bombs and crash a plane into New York City with us inside, ironing away as we go down, Harris wrote. The journals were found in Harris's bedroom by police following the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history at that time. Okay. So we have not one, but two coincidences here. So not only does he write about this in his journal, might have been MK Ultra, but coincidentally, I mean, this is 1/365th chance that someone's birthday is September 11th. Now, also coincidentally, it's exactly 2 decades. So this isn't a random year. He was born September 11th, 81. Exactly 2 decades. Not like 83 or 86 or 77. Exactly 2 decades. So you have another 2 and, I mean, okay. You have another 2 and a 10, because 2 decades. So you have the 2 and the 10. 2, 1, 0. You have all the same numerals here. And Eric Harris is writing about hijacking a plane and crashing in New York City. I mean, if it was only one of these, it would still be a little sketch. It would still be a little sketch. Another curiosity. I mean, everybody writes this one off, but this is one. It's so difficult to write this particular. I don't want to get into predictive programming. We actually went over a bunch of 9/11 predictive programming in the predictive programming podcast. I did that podcast a while ago. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Maybe that one needs a re-air. But here's something that just simply cannot be written off. And that, of course, is the expiration date of Neo's driver's license. Expiration date is not only September 11th, but September 11th, 2001. I mean, that's quite specific. The specificity here is insane, and it's Capital City, USA. A lot of people don't talk about Capital City, USA. What's the capital of the world in the USA? That's New York City. So I mean, this is just so insane here. Just the coincidence stack. And The Matrix is, of course, a movie, probably the most famous conspiracy movie of all time. I mean, just the coincidence stack is beyond stratospheric. I mean, is it possible to have more I mean, again, we're talking not just 1/365th chances, because that would just be for September 11th. But September 11th, 2001 specifically, now you're going into, I mean, you're talking about like winning the lottery every single day, not once. You're doing back-to-back lottery wins every single day. I mean, what are the chances? Oh, we have Matrix Decoded in the chat here. Do you have a comment about this passport? About this is the expiration date here? It expires. It seems like a lot expired on September 11, 2001. I mean, if you want to really get crazy too, something, I mean, people do talk about this a little bit. I'm going to bring up another image here. Yeah, because I didn't want to spend all this time on The Matrix, but it's kind of relevant here. Because, yeah, let's talk. We'll talk about one more aspect of Columbine, then we're going to get to the new stuff. Or at least stuff I haven't heard discussed that I think is highly relevant. Just give me a second to bring up this image. 2 images, actually. Actually, there might be 3 here. Who thinks the stream's gonna get shut down today? Are we taking bets? How many streams did we had shut down? I think it was only the NASA occult patches. The other streams didn't get shut down midstream. They were just removed later, like the Isaac Cappy podcast. Alright, there's a couple images I want to put on the screen. And then we're going to go over one more date here that I think is kind of interesting. Okay. Actually, I think this might be incredibly relevant, actually. It might be more relevant than even I'm theorizing. So, if you haven't checked out the Columbine series on MINDSHOCK, make sure you check that out. So, the Trenchcoat Mafia is another curiosity. I don't know if it's been directly... See, the problem here, we have all these 9/11 coincidences that directly tie in with Columbine, but there's so much more, though. I mean, this is all the tip of the iceberg. So you have Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. Dylan's birthday, 9/11. Exactly 2 decades, not a random year. You have Eric Harris writing about hijacking a plane and crashing it into New York City. You have Neo's passport in the Matrix expiring exactly 9/11, 2001 specifically. But here's the other thing, too. You have Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold dressing like everyone in the Matrix for years prior to the release of the Matrix. So the Matrix was released March 31st, 99. And it's actually unclear. I couldn't find information on whether or not they had even seen the movie. Let me double check that real quick. So it was only a month. Yeah, I mean, we're talking a few weeks before the shooting. Oh, wow. Who wants another coincidence? Wow. Okay. Supposedly, I don't have a receipt for this. I don't know if this was in a journal entry or something, but here's a MINDSHOCK if true. Dylan planned to watch The Matrix with Devin Adams. So Dylan Klebold, this is crazy. This is crazy. Okay, who knows who Devin Adams is? I didn't want to go this far into Columbine, but I think we have to, given the level of coincidence here. I mean, the level of coincidence that we're going to get into here. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, this has even mind-shocked my mind. I thought I had seen all of the coincidences for 9/11 and Columbine. Apparently, even I have not. Because this is shocking my mind here. This is shocking my mind. So Devin Adams was a pretty close friend of the Trenchcoat Mafia members. Just give me a second to double check something. And of course, I'm going to provide some more receipts here for the goofs that are hallucinating that this is all rumor mill. I always bring the receipts. Not only do I bring them, I'm going to drown the coincidence theorists in receipts. She was actually one of, in addition to Robin Anderson. Now, Anderson, I mean, this is kind of curious too. I mean, Anderson's a common name, but you have Thomas Anderson. You have Robin Anderson, the friend who allegedly bought the guns, also from Department of Defense contractors with high-level clearances, for those who don't know. Again, check out the Columbine series, because this just gets so crazy. But other than Robin Anderson, one of Dylan Klebold's closest friends, it was Devin Adams. Again, I'm almost done with the Columbine aside, but this is actually kind of crazy. So this is Devin Adams. Again, here's some receipts. Just photographs with Dylan Klebold. One of Dylan Klebold's closest friends is Devin Adams. Dylan Klebold, born September 11th, 1981. Anderson Neo, passport expires September 2001. Matrix comes out March 31st, 1999. Does anybody want to guess the date that Dylan Klebold made plans with Devin Adams to go to the movie theater to watch The Matrix? Anybody want to take a guess? Again, I do not have the receipt for this plan. It's listed here. Someone posted it. Now, a lot of these, I don't know if this was one of Dylan's journal entries, because, I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of redacted and unreleased documents. Anybody want to take a guess on the date that Dylan Klebold, born September 11th, wanted actually supposedly made plans with close friend Devin Adams to go watch The Matrix? Justin Johnson is close. Justin Johnson says 420. 421. So a kid who's supposedly committing suicide is actively making plans. Les Xylophone got it. I don't know if you heard me say it first based on the lag. So a kid who's supposedly going to commit suicide is actively making plans to watch The Matrix with close friend Devin Adams. Now, these guys already dress like they're right out of The Matrix. They already make home movies right out of The Matrix. They love guns. They shoot fake guns. On the morning of April 20th, other students thought they were just shooting one of their regular videos. So, and keep in mind, the Trenchcoat Mafia supposedly planning to carry out nationwide attacks. Nationwide attacks. I mean, have people here is there anybody here who has not watched my Columbine series, the most in-depth, comprehensive series on Columbine ever? The last episode, I actually played the raw dispatch audio with police officers explicitly stating that the FBI and other agencies knew about the attack. I actually played the raw audio and a series of other calls on how everybody in the area knew it was going to happen. And this is going to be the tie-in with 9/11 that I was actually planning this whole time. All of this so far is not. But for those that don't know, there's over 100 accounts that don't match the official narrative in Columbine. I actually go through the official law enforcement documents for each and every one of those accounts. Furthermore, I go over all of the other shootings and attacks on schools that were planned all around that time on 4/20. But here's just a quick preview of what I go over on the Columbine series. These are all attacks. Some of them actually carried out, some of them interrupted before they were carried out. And this is straight from law enforcement Jefferson County documentation. This is document 18,154. There is much more to come. This is definitely not over. Every 13 days, they will hit another school. Chatfield is next, then Dakota Ridge. And there were bomb threats, actual arrests, all these different high schools in the Columbine area in Colorado and all over the country and even Canada. Even Canada, the once semi-great nation of Canada, there were attacks planned. So again, this is the nationwide trench coat mafia. The trench coat mafia eerily resembling the Matrix attire. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold making home videos very similar to the Matrix in terms of action scenes with trench coats and guns. Dylan Klebold, born September 11th, planning to go see the Matrix with Devin Adams on April 21st. Devin Adams also listed as Zach Heckler's girlfriend. So real quick, for those who don't know who Zach Heckler is, this is a class, this is the Columbine class photo. No joke. They're literally making guns and shooting at the camera. The guy on the left is Brooks Brown. The guy in the baseball hat with the sunglasses is Eric Harris. Up top is Dylan Klebold with the longer hair and sunglasses. Robin Anderson is to his left. The guy on the bottom right, which nobody talks about, who is also aiming that gun, that's Zach Heckler. Another close friend and associate. So also named as Devin Adams' boyfriend. Then, I mean, the tangled webs we weave here on MindShock. And again, this is the official class photo. And again, these are individuals that nobody wants, the coincidence theorists are terrified of talking about when it comes to Columbine. There's one more thing I wanted to go over here. Just give me a second here. Quite a lot of documents to go through here. Alright, I can't find... I think I just found it. Alright, it gets kind of deep, so I guess I'll save that for the Columbine series. But anyway, this series of coincidences is just absolutely mind-shocking, mind-boggling, if you will. So let's continue here, what we're here for. Something I haven't seen anybody discussing, but it will tie into Columbine for a little further. Tweak was asking about Devin Adams' birthday. I can get it in a second.
Supposed to mend me? It's supposed to open my eyes, make everything all right. As if I'm supposed to be okay with kids gunned down in the street in Detroit. As if...
Her birthday is July 25th, 82. Wow, she's actually got quite a bit of redacted statements in her interview as well. Wow. Interesting. She's got a lot of. I think I went over her somewhat in the Columbine series. Perhaps we need a deeper dive. Anyway, okay. So let's get to the main reason we're here. Okay. The main reason we're here, what I haven't heard talked about before, I want to talk about all of the passengers that canceled their flights or simply didn't show up on September 11th. Now, the amount of receipts here going to be quite mind-shocking. Quite mind-shocking. So first of all, I went over this on the previous 9/11 episodes, that it was reported that approximately half of the workers in the World Trade Center did not show up that Tuesday morning. We're not talking about a Friday, which even on Fridays, half of the working population does not randomly take off Friday. But obviously Fridays are, people take 3-day weekends. But Tuesdays, that's a big day. I mean, I think more people take Mondays off than Tuesdays for a 4-day weekend. But yeah, so this is a Tuesday. So we're going to go to Shoestring 911. It is a blog spot, but the amount of receipts here, I'm going to actually screenshot this. This is the most meticulous bibliography I've ever seen. I mean, it is all sourced from, there's 249 sources here. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna. Okay, I can't put every single. I don't feel like putting every single one on the screen. But you can go to this URL, and they have an entire bibliography here. So this'll this is enough to bury coincidence theorists in receipts. Absolutely bury them for the goofs that are saying, oh, that's a blog? Well, yeah, it's a blog with all the sources being .gov and newspaper articles. Those are all the sources. So over 200 official sources here. I'm gonna put this on the screen in a second. So we're going to be talking about here over 350 passengers canceled their reservations or didn't show up for the hijacked 9/11 flights. And at the bottom of the page here is a bibliography here with over 249. I'm not going to go through all of these. But these are all official sources, all newspapers, .gov sources here. So again, anybody can go to the URL and look through all 249 sources. Because you know how the Dunning-Kruger goofs are, how coincidence theorists and authority-worshipping bootlickers are. They're always like, oh, well, that's a blog. They're always going for the genetic logical fallacies. Because they're too utterly clueless to examine arguments on their own merit. But not only that, there are 249 official sources on this article here. Plenty more than an article running in the New York Times today. So let's go through this here. More than 350 people who were originally scheduled to be on the 4 airliners hijacked in the 9/11 attacks either changed their plans and canceled their reservations, in many cases at the last minute, or simply failed to show up for the flights on the morning of September 11, 2001. While these individuals came from a variety of backgrounds, a remarkable number of them worked in or had close connections to Hollywood. or other areas of the entertainment industry. So I just want to interrupt the goofs that are going to say, oh, but people always cancel flights. Yes. The numbers I found are between 1 and 5%. So the average 757 holds 200 passengers. So across 4 flights, that's 800 people. So 5% of 800 is 40. So the average cancellation, there should have been 40 passengers on average who canceled or didn't show up. 350, that's almost half of all of the planes. So out of 800 people, almost half, almost 50% canceled. Anybody find that strange? And why is nobody talking about this? Not to mention, approximately half of the people didn't show up for work in the World Trade Center. We're talking thousands and thousands of people just randomly didn't show up that Tuesday. Again, it's usually a very, obviously there's a control, there's a base rate. 100% of people do not go to work every day, especially when you're talking about thousands. But so if dozens or even 100 or 200 or 300 don't show up on a random Tuesday, why are thousands and thousands not showing up only that day on 9/11? Same thing with what the normal cancellation rate here on planes is 5%. Even if we double that, let's go 10%. That would be 80 people. 350 people canceled out of 800 passengers if the flights were booked. Maybe they weren't booked, which would bring the cancellation rate even higher. So if they weren't fully booked, then the cancellation rate is even higher. But let's assume they were. Let's give everybody the benefit of the doubt here. Let's assume, even best case scenario, to make this as less of a coincidence as possible, we could say they were all fully booked. So on average, there should have been 40 cancellations. Let's double that. That'd be 80. Let's double it. Just let's say it's 10%. That would be 80. But 350, and coincidentally, most of the 350 were people that worked in Hollywood. So not random travelers in other industries, but Hollywood-based entertainment individuals canceled. I mean, who believes this is all coincidental? Now, the tie-in to Columbine, which is a little tricky because 420 does have has a higher absentee rate. Although what's curious is that all of these druggies and burnouts and troublemakers, they were there that day at Columbine. Like the kids that you would expect not to go to school that day were there that day. But supposedly, approximately, again, these records have not been released. Supposedly, approximately half of Columbine student population did not show up that day. So there was over 1,000 students at Columbine. So supposedly half of them didn't show up. Now, I want to know what the normal absentee rate is on April 20th at Columbine. How many people were absent the year before, the year before that, the year before that? I don't think it was half the entire school, especially not freshmen and sophomores. They usually don't really, that's more of a senior thing, but that's like a senior skip day. So again, just this absentee rate, 9/11, Columbine, a lot of these events seem to have this greater than tenfold out of the ordinary absentee rate. How can that be explained, and why is nobody talking about it? But continuing in the article here. Some of them were very well-known personalities. For example, among the individuals who had reservations for American Airlines Flight 11, the first plane to be hijacked, were Seth MacFarlane. I mean, here's the other thing too. Like, isn't this kind of crazy? Because out of all the flights that morning, so in 2001, there was over. Oh, that can't be right. So there's approximately 16 million flights per year, domestic flights per year. 16 million per year? I mean, that's just all-time average. So in 2001, there would have been less. We're talking millions of flights. So we're talking. I mean, that's a lot of flights. Man, that's crazy. So, what are the chances? I mean, this is just crazy. What are the chances? I mean, this is just weird. So, at any given moment, there's thousands of flights in the air. So, thousands of flights. And there just happened to be all these famous people on these 4 particular flights. And they didn't show up. I mean, that's kind of weird. So anyway, Seth MacFarlane, the creator of the cartoon Family Guy. A lot of Illuminati predictive programming there. Actor Mark Wahlberg, the star of movies such as Boogie Nights and The Fighter. Bobby Farrelly, the writer and director of movies such as Dumb and Dumber and There's Something About Mary. Julia Child, the renowned chef and TV personality. Sam Mendes, the director of American Beauty and the latest James Bond movie Skyfall, was originally scheduled to be on American Airlines Flight 77, the 3rd plane to be hijacked. Robert Redford, the world-famous actor and director, narrowly avoided being on United Airlines Flight 93, the 4th plane to be hijacked. Interestingly, one man who was originally booked on Flight 77, Eric Nelson, was later the executive producer of a National Geographic Channel documentary that attempted to debunk claims of U.S. government involvement in 9/11 attacks. Now that's interesting, because if he was simply the producer of a 9/11 documentary, there are so many, that wouldn't be that suspicious. Especially he has a close connection with it. He might have gone out of his way to produce that because he was supposed to be on one of the flights. But to be only specifically involved in a documentary aimed at debunking, instead of, it's not aimed at finding the truth, it's aiming at debunking conspiracy theories. That's kind of curious. It is also perhaps notable that a fair number of people who were originally scheduled to be on the hijacked flights but canceled their reservations or failed to turn up for their flights worked in professional sport. These included Major League Baseball player Brad Thomas, ice hockey coach Bruce Boudreau, and legendary basketball coach John Thompson. So basically super famous people who might be Illuminati initiated in the world of sports and entertainment. Summarized in this article are accounts found in books, news articles, FBI documents, websites or internet blogs of these individuals who were originally booked on the flights hijacked on September 11th but canceled their reservations or simply failed to show up for their flights. A few of these accounts are vague or ambiguous, so it is difficult to say with certainty that the individuals described in them were indeed originally booked on one of the hijacked flights. And again, I just have to reiterate, this is one of the most meticulously researched articles I've ever seen. Over 240, there's 249 sources here. I mean, this is meticulous. Anybody have any other questions before I continue through this article here? Because, yeah, once we get through this, I mean, this is the main thing I want to go over. Because, like I said, the normal cancellation rate is 1 to 5%. So there should have been approximately 40 cancellations. Even if we double that and make it 80, that's a far cry from 350. And if they were all fully booked, we're talking about 800 passengers across 4 planes. 350 out of 800 passengers cancel or don't show up? Like, what level of, how devout of a coincidence theorist, authority worshipping cultist bootlicker does one have to be to not raise an eyebrow at that? Grant's Pants says, who shorted United and American Airlines stocks is the real question. I don't know if we're going to get to that here, but... States of the United said the cafeteria seemed packed. That's crazy. That much was only half. Are you talking about Columbine? Well, there are different lunch periods, just like at any high school. So there's only so many tables. You wouldn't be able to get all this. That's why they have to split up lunches, because all the students don't fit in the cafeteria at the same time. There's too many. It's over 1,000. Because there were only a few dozen in the cafeteria at that time. Most of the students were in class. Or like the lunch, a lot of people were in the library too, studying or whatever for lunch. And some of the students also go outside for lunch or leave the school for lunch and go to Burger King or wherever. But anyway, here, Grant's Pants says Anunnaki and the chicken snake gods always get a heads up. Wow. Oh, yeah, and then, of course, there was the whole gold situation in the basements of the World Trade Center. We didn't even touch upon that. All right, so let's continue the article here. A few of these accounts are vague or ambiguous, so it is difficult to say with certainty that the individuals described in them were indeed originally booked on one of the hijacked flights. All the same, from an analysis of the accounts in this article, along with evidence compiled by the FBI, I have calculated that over 350, so it might have been even more than that. So these are only the sourced ones, so potentially even more. So, okay, that's crazy. Who were originally booked on the hijacked flights canceled their reservations or failed to show up for the flights. Furthermore, there were presumably people who canceled reservations for the hijacked flights whose accounts are as yet unreported or whose accounts I have not come across. There were therefore likely even more people who canceled their reservations or failed to turn up for the hijacked flights than the already high number described in this article. Yeah, that's absolutely insane. That's absolutely insane. So potentially even more than that. So it could have literally been more than half when the usual cancellation rate is 5%. So it could have potentially been pushing 50% or over when the usual cancellation rate or non-show rate is 5%. It's 1 to 5%, depending on the flight. 5% is the high end. And even if we double that, it's still astronomically more that particular day. The FBI appears to have considered the large number of people who canceled their reservations or failed to turn up for the hijacked flights to have been suspicious. In the aftermath of 9/11, its agents, in fact, interviewed some of these people. However, from accounts of the interviews that are available on the internet, it appears the agency's investigation was limited in scope. I mean, who thinks that was accidentally limited and not intentionally? Investigators seem to have focused on determining whether these people had any connections to the alleged hijackers. I like the wording of this article already. The alleged hijackers and their associates, and appear to have taken no action to verify the explanations that were given as to why these people canceled their reservations or missed their flights. In any other scenario, like imagine you work at an office building, that office building gets bombed, and a bunch of people didn't show up that day on a Tuesday. in a real investigation, they would be really investigating all the people who happened to not show up that day, particularly if it was an astronomically high amount of people. Did some people have foreknowledge of the 9/11 attacks? People who have canceled their reservations or failed to show up for the flights hijacked on September 11th have offered various innocuous explanations for why they avoided being on those craft. Again, for the coincidence theorists, out of the 350 plus, approximately 40 at the high end. So anywhere, up to 40 could have legit explanations and would be expected to, because that's known as a control. That's the baseline. So that's the high end, 40 at the high end. So it could be lower. So it could be anywhere, it could be 5 to 40. So anywhere between 5 and 40 people would be expected to have legitimate explanations for missing the flights. But what about everybody else? The possibility needs to be investigated, though, that the real reasons they missed the flights were different to what they claimed. A person could perhaps have given a false explanation because they felt it necessary to withhold the truth about how they avoided being on one of the hijacked planes. I mean, would they really say, oh, wait a second, we in the Bohemian Grove newsletter, CC Bilderberg group, we were told not to go on that flight. Like, does anybody expect them to have said that in an official FBI interview? Bohemian Grove, CC Bilderberg, CC Davos. It is worth considering whether some of the canceled reservations and failures to show up for the hijacked flights were in truth the result of individuals having some degree of foreknowledge of the 9/11 attacks. Supporting this possibility is the fact that the news reports have clearly suggested some people did indeed know beforehand that it would be dangerous to travel on September 11th. And again, let's use context here. Pre-9/11, pre-TSA, how often did people think it was dangerous to travel? Pre-9/11, how many people canceled travel reservations based on a danger of hijacking pre-9/11? Not that hijackings didn't happen, they did. But in these domestic flights, how many thought that that was a real danger to the point of not even canceling, but simply not showing up for a flight? This is pre-9/11, because people, a lot of coincidence theorists, goofs, their mental capacity is kind of low. So they might think it's not that strange, but they're thinking in a post-9/11 world where the definitely not useless agency of the TSA and TSA security in airports exist. For example, San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, who was scheduled to fly from San Fran to New York on the morning of September 11th, was reportedly warned on the evening of September 10th that, quote, Americans should be cautious about their air travel. Similarly, a particularly urgent warning was reportedly received on the night of September 10th, which led some senior Pentagon officials to cancel a trip scheduled for the morning of September 11th. And those Pentagon officials were I mean, it would be curious to know if those exact Pentagon officials even showed up to the Pentagon, or if they did. I mean, these are Pentagon officials, not the civilian employees that were in the area where the alleged plane struck the Pentagon. So they would have been in another part of the Pentagon or not at the Pentagon at all. That's curious, is it not? A person with, it would also be curious to know, were there any actual high-level government agents or high-level Hollywood people that were killed on 9/11? A person with, or allegedly killed, A person with a ticket for one of the hijacked flights who canceled their reservation or failed to show up for their flight need not have had any foreknowledge of the impending terrorist attacks themselves. They could have instead perhaps changed their plans as a consequence of an associate of theirs, such as a friend or work colleague, having some degree of foreknowledge of the 9/11 attacks. So supposedly that's what happened at Columbine, where certain kids told other kids not to go that day. So they weren't directly in cahoots with the trenchcoat mafia or whoever was planning that attack. That associate might have deliberately made arrangements that led to the person changing their plans. As one possible example, a Los Angeles Times journalist was scheduled to be on Flight 11, but missed it due to a last-minute change of plans. The journalist, according to his ex-wife, was in line to board Flight 11 when the LA Times called and said, "We need you to go to Atlanta. Do you have time to switch?" It was therefore the decisions of this man's bosses that led to him missing Flight 11 rather than his own decisions. And that could have been innocent, because again, we would expect up to 40 people to have some kind of situation where they couldn't make the flight. Not 350 plus, but 40 people would have had legit reasons. Up to 40. Again, could have only been 5, depending. But on the high end, 40. Another possible example is the experience of businessman Benjamin Gordon, who was originally booked on United Airlines Flight 175, the second plane to be hijacked, but missed it. He said because his girlfriend convinced him to switch to a flight on September 12th, since September 11th was his birthday, and she could cook him a birthday dinner the day before he flew out to Cali. So according to Gordon's account, it was the decisions of his girlfriend rather than his own decisions that led him to miss Flight 175. And again, we have no idea if these people are lying or not either, depending on who they know and whether they're in the Illuminati club. So obviously some people would have, these situations up to 40 on an average day. It is also worth keeping in mind that some of the canceled reservations and failures to show up for the hijacked flights could simply have been due to chance. No doubt the experience of coming so close to being a victim of the 9/11 attacks would have been very upsetting for many of the individuals involved. What is most suspicious, therefore, is not any particular account, but the large number of people who canceled their reservations or failed to show up for the flights. I'm actually surprised he's not bringing up like the normal percent cancellations, which again, 1 to 5% is considered normal. So even if we double that, so we'd be looking at 40 to 80 people who might not have made the flights or canceled. We have 350 plus that are known, possibly more. People in the chat talking about the predictions. Yes, indeed. Bill Cooper not only predicted it, but he also named Bin Laden. That's kind of a bold claim, so let me put up the receipt on that real quick. Just in case we have new listeners here. Whatever's going to happen, they're going to blame it on Osama bin Laden. Don't you even believe it? That's June 28th, 2001. There's actually a longer quote. So yeah, a few weeks before 9/11, he said this on his radio show. And if you haven't checked out the Bill Cooper podcast on MINDSHOCK, check that out. He also predicted Columbine. and a lot of school shootings, and MK Ultra involvement, etc. Did plotters aim to influence who would be on the hijacked flights, as well as the possibility of some individuals having foreknowledge of what would happen on September 11th? Other explanations for the large number of people who canceled their reservations or failed to show up for the hijacked flights need to be considered. The 9/11 Commission stated that it found, quote, no evidence to indicate that the hijackers manipulated the passenger loads on the aircraft they hijacked. Financial records did not reveal the purchase of any tickets beyond those the hijackers used for themselves, end quote. Obviously, that is all allegedly and from the accused investigating themselves. But could individuals other than the men who supposedly hijacked the 4 airliners on September 11th have been involved? These individuals could, for example, have been rogue members of the U.S. military or intelligence services. Might these people have wanted to influence how many passengers would be on the hijacked flights and which particular individuals would be on those flights? Now, we're not going to get into the rabbit holes of what happened to these flights if these flights were not the ones that actually flew into the buildings. Again, we have hologram theories, we have many different theories and physics violations. So, yeah, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But just the cancellations themselves are curious. So, certainly what happened on September 11th would have been quite different without so many people canceling their reservations or failing to turn up for the flights that would be hijacked. Flight 11 and Flight 77 carried the same or slightly more passengers on September 11th than the average number of passengers they carried in the previous 3 months, according to the 9/11 Commission reports. 51% of the seats on Flight 11 and 33% of the seats on Flight 77 were occupied that day. Wait, that's really crazy. So wait a second. We're talking 80+% cancellation then. Because I was giving them the benefit. Now, again, we can't really trust the 9/11 Commission report, so maybe that's not true. But if that's true, these are half plane loads, which means the majority canceled? That's absolutely insane. That's so crazy. Unless, well, if people canceled, other people, but if the plane wasn't full, I wonder how many last-minute tickets were purchased. I mean, it couldn't have been that many. Like, people that purchased the tickets literally less than an hour before the flight due to a last-minute, because, yeah, just factoring in the cancellation. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to tell, but either way, we're looking at, this could be close to 80% cancellation of original ticket purchasers. Because if the flights are normally only half full, now hold on a second. If the flights are 33 to 51% full, that would be less than 400 passengers across all 4 planes. And 350 canceled? Now, without knowing how many people got last minute tickets, we would need to know how many of those tickets were purchased last minute by people, that got stuck or had a whatever. We would need to know that information. But with or without that information, because I calculated all of this as if the flights were full. But if they're normally half full in 2000, who traveled in 2001? I'm trying to remember. Every flight I took was pretty much booked. But I didn't take that many flights back then. Okay, who in the chat flew a lot in 2001? Were United Airlines flights usually fully booked or not? Because according to the 9/11 Commission report, we're talking 33. Wait. This is even worse. 51% of the seats on Flight 11, 33% Flight 77, 20% on Flight 93, 33% Flight 175. This is crazy. We're talking 80+% cancellations? So how many of these... This is crazy, because that means out of 300 to 400 passengers, 350 canceled their flights out of originally booked passengers. So we would need to know how many last-second bookings there were. Okay, Grant Pants is saying, I flew a lot, 98 to 01. Flights were usually light with many empty seats. Okay, that's a good point, Heracles. Heracles says destination flights were usually kind of full, because that's what I remember, yes. Like vacation time flights. So on a regular workday morning, September 11th is kind of close to Labor Day. I mean, but I don't know. I guess, is it far enough away from... I guess it's far enough away from Labor Day. I guess. So if they're normally half full, we're looking at 80% cancellations. How could because that would mean there would be less than 400 passengers originally booked on those flights. So this would be an 80 to 90% cancellation rate. Because, well, again, if we're trusting the 9/11 Commission report. Because because I calculated all this as if they were fully booked, just to give them the benefit of the doubt, just to stack the numbers in the favor of the coincidence theorists, to give them every benefit. And I even doubled the normal cancellation rate. So that would mean the majority of passengers canceled. It could have been close to 100% depending on how many of the people that ended up traveling. I would like to know the people that ended up on those flights, how far in advance did they book, or were those last-minute bookings? Because if that many people canceled the night before, was the airline either offering a special deal, or were they doing, or as a result of layovers? Like, what was the situation? Yeah, I'm not talking about the unsold tickets, Tweak, because if it's no, I'm just looking at the numbers. Because if it's approximately 200 passengers a plane, if it's half full, that's 100 passengers per plane. They're saying it was normal to be 30 to 50%. But even if we take 50% on 4 planes, that's 400 people, and this guy has racked up 350 cancellations. Are you guys following? We're not talking about unsold tickets. Because if the average amount of sold tickets was less than 400 and 350 of them canceled or didn't show up, like, who was on those flights? Or was nobody on those flights? Like, how many last-second ticket purchases? We need that information. How many of the people that ended up on the flight were last-minute purchases at the airport? Or, again, some people are theorizing those flights never even existed, but, okay, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. And again, we can't really trust the 9/11 Commission report, but according to Grant Pants, who says he traveled 98 to 01 fairly frequently, he said that they were not usually booked, like regular non-destination flights. So that would mean the majority of people canceled. That's crazy. That's even crazier than my original calculation. So from a normal 1 to 5% cancellation rate, we have an 80 to 90% cancellation rate? I mean, that's straight up bonkers. We might have to start re-examining whether these flights ever even existed. Okay, so without so many people canceling their reservations or missing the flights, these planes would have carried far more passengers than average. And they may have even been filled to capacity on September 11th. Okay, so that's kind of crazy too. So did they intentionally try to book them 100%? Okay, that's interesting. So if the fix was in and they went out of their way to try to 100% book all of them, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. So if they hadn't gone out of their way to try to fully book them all, Okay, that makes a little bit more sense if the flights were real. So if a normal flight would have 30 to 50%, and they booked these to near 100% capacity, and then 350 canceled, okay, that would make a little bit more sense, but that would still be a 80+% cancellation rate. Because that would mean there would have been 400, there would have been 800. 800 would have been booked if they went out of their way to fully book these particular flights. Man, this is such a rabbit hole. Flight 175 and Flight 93, meanwhile, were found to have carried considerably less passengers on September 11th than the average numbers of passengers they had carried in the previous 3 months. 33% of the seats on Flight 175 and 20% of the seats on Flight 93 were occupied that day. Wow. That's practically empty, 20%. This would not have been the case without so many people canceling their reservations or missing the flights. These planes, too, may have instead have carried far more passengers than average, and perhaps may have even been filled to capacity, if nobody canceled. Okay. As well as all the people, and again, we still don't know how many of these were last-second purchases, as well as all the people who were originally scheduled to be passengers on the hijacked flights but avoided being on those planes, numerous pilots and flight attendants who were originally going to be on those flights changed their plans and consequently avoided being killed in another attacks. Okay, so we need another control here. On average, how many pilots and flight attendants changed plans? So was this in excess of the normal? And again, I reiterate, I'm not saying we should be trusting anything in the 9/11 Commission report. But even best case scenario for the coincidence theorists, best case scenario, you're still looking at an over 50% cancellation rate. Way over. When the normal is 1 to 5%. Curiously, not only did many people who would have been on the hijacked planes miss the flights because they changed their travel plans, okay, but also many of the pilots, flight attendants, and passengers who actually were on the hijacked flights on September 11th were only booked on those flights at the last minute. Okay, so we're looking at, we could potentially be looking at a near 100% cancellation rate. I mean, we're looking at, this could be 90+% cancellations or no-shows if the majority of the people were last-minute bookings, which this blog is alleging they were. That's totally insane. Canceled reservations require further investigation. The accounts below of people who were booked on the flights hijacked on September 11th but missed those flights raise many questions. Could it really just be coincidence that so many people who were scheduled to take 4 particular flights on the same day canceled their reservations or failed to show up for their flights? Or are these accounts evidence of something more sinister? And was it just a coincidence that so many flight attendants and pilots who were originally scheduled to be on the 4 hijacked planes changed their plans and avoided being on those flights? Okay. So out of all the other flights that morning, they have a 1 to 5% cancellation rate. And only these 4 flights have a 90+% cancellation rate, 80 or 90+%. All the other flights are 1 to 5%. What do the coincidence theorists make of this? Have coincidence theorists chimed in on this, those who believe the official narrative? Many people canceled their reservations or failed to show up for Flight 11. American Airlines Flight 11 was the first plane to be hijacked on September 11, 2001. Also curious, if that had the most cancellations, that was before the first impact. or alleged impact, before the first incident. And that had the high, that's pretty crazy, because you could argue, I mean, you still really can't argue, because where the flights are, they were already boarding. So yeah, I don't know. Many people canceled their okay. So the Boeing 767 took off from Logan International Airport. In Boston, 7:59 a.m., bound for LA, but crashed into the World Trade Center in New York at 8:46 a.m., allegedly. The plane had a capacity of 150. Whoa. Okay, so I was calculating 200, because they're even the same model plane, because if it's a 757, 767, different planes have different seating. I was calculating based on 200 passengers. Here it's stating that it had a capacity of 158. So now we're firmly in the territory of the upper 90% cancellation rate. Because the number, this is far more coincidental than I originally calculated. Only 81 were on board that day. However, many people who had reservations for Flight 11 had either canceled their reservations or failed to turn up for the flight. And, as previously mentioned, among these people were a striking number of individuals who worked in or had close connections to the entertainment industry. The most widely reported examples are Seth MacFarlane and Mark Wahlberg. MacFarlane's the creator of the Fox Network cartoon sitcom Family Guy, also well known for having hosted the 2013 Oscars. On the evening of September 10th, he gave a lecture at his old college in Rhode Island, after which he went out with some faculty members and had a few pints. He was therefore hungover on the morning of September 11th. Furthermore, MacFarlane said his travel agent mistakenly told him Flight 11 was scheduled to take off at 8:15 a.m. instead of 7:45 a.m. Are we believing that story? Consequently, when he arrived at Logan, that gate had already closed, so he exchanged his ticket for a seat on another flight later in the morning and avoided being on the hijacked plane. I missed it by 10 minutes, MacFarlane had commented. It was very, very fortunate. Curiously, MacFarlane's account is contradicted by an FBI document that lists many passengers who canceled reservations for Flight 11. While MacFarlane suggested that he intended to take Flight 11 but arrived at the airport too late, the document states that he actually canceled his reservation at 6:34 a.m. on September 11th, more than an hour before the plane was scheduled to take off. Again, this is all documented with sources. So this is actually the official FBI documents. And you can actually read the link on the FBI report. This is FBI memos here. I mean, this is crazy. So MacFarlane flat out lied, so he thought no one would check. I mean, this is crazy. So he was that hungover that he was up that early and actually canceled the flight at 6:34 a.m. So he didn't actually go to try to make the flight. Is anybody surprised that Seth MacFarlane is a liar? Grant's Pants in the chat asks, why does Seth MacFarlane make so many 9/11 jokes in Family Guy? That's a good question. Tweak in the chat says, it would be interesting to see if any other flights were also 20% full, which ones, and if they were intended to be additional hijackings. There's a whole documentary on the fifth plane. I don't know how full it was though, but that's a great question to see if there were any other. Yeah, I think originally I remember that morning on the news. I don't know if anybody has the news clip. I remember watching the news. They actually said there were several other planes, like there were plans for several other planes to be hijacked. I don't know the source of all that. I just vaguely remember a news report. So supposedly there were other planes, but I don't know. That's curious. Jeff H in the chat says cell phones weren't working at all that day. I was about a mile and a half from the Pentagon waiting in line at a payphone. I overheard people trying to find out info about their loved ones. So wait, the cell towers were down everywhere? That's curious. Because I did see, so cell phones did not work in planes at that time in 2011. There was some professor who actually he went on a bunch of different planes and used every single different cell phone carrier, and none of them worked. None of them would make calls. In the plane, Jeff H., are you saying no cell phones worked on the ground either? So they took down so the towers were down that morning? I actually did have a cell phone in 2001, but I don't think I needed to use it at that time. Because back in 2001, you were still using landlines because cell phones were expensive. So you'd only use your cell phone if you were somewhere, you really needed to, and you were somewhere where you didn't have a landline. Jeff H. says, I'm just saying there were long lines at payphones, and I assume it's because cell phones were clogged with everyone trying to use them all at once. That's interesting. I do wonder what the threshold was for cell phone calls, because I do remember back in '01, around those times, on New Year's Eve, depending on your carrier, I think Verizon might have always been good, but there were some carriers on New Year's Eve where you couldn't get through. But that's the only day of the year I remember where cell towers could have been overloaded. I don't know if that would be enough because a lot more people were make calls on New Year's Eve because you're talking the whole country. Whereas on 9/11, you're talking about only a couple hundred passengers making those calls. Even if you add thousands of people in New York, that's still nowhere near the amount of people that make calls on New Year's Eve. Like, not even close. So I don't know if that would have been enough to clog the cell towers, even in '01. Phil in the chat says, I got a call to turn the TV on, so we had cells working. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's enough people because New Year's Eve, even back in '01, New Year's Eve was the only time I recall where, unless there was a storm, but the local storms could take out cell towers, but that wouldn't apply everywhere. So New Year's Eve was really the only time I remember, vast cell outages. Spirit of New Orleans says, I had the Motorola flip phone through radio phone in the late 90s. Tara in the chat. Oh, someone said they didn't have a cell phone until 2017. Tara in the chat says, 2017, dang, I wish I didn't have one now. Yeah, everyone wanted a cell phone back then. Now nobody wants one. Rich people had cell phones in the late 70s, early 80s. Those brick cell phones. One of my earlier cars actually had a car phone. Those were fun. Car phones were awesome. It wasn't cordless, though. Blue Unicorn says, in '01 there were relatively few cell towers compared to now. That is true, but again, the only time I remember them not working is New Year's Eve, because you would have literally, you're talking about tens of, or whoever had obviously not that many, not as many people had cell phones, but almost everybody with a cell phone was using it on New Year's Eve. I don't think that would have been enough people making calls. I don't know, though. Oh, Tara had a pager. We got to talk about pagers. I think I need to do a whole podcast on pagers. Pagers were awesome. They got a bad rap because mostly drug dealers used them, but yeah, pagers were awesome. Kill the Bank said, I had a cell phone then. It was working in Illinois at least. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm going to ask a few of the people that were there that day. I remember them making calls. They said they made calls that day in the city. So New York was fine. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Pentagon restricted cell. I mean, it's the Pentagon. So maybe they shut down their cell towers. But I think New York and everywhere else was working. Tweak says, in '01 I worked for directory assistance and all phone lines were packed, land or otherwise. Well, land is different too, because there are occasions. I do remember. I don't remember '01 though, but prior to that there were. I mean, those were local switchboards though. I don't know. Okay, so okay. Yeah, I don't. For some reason, I don't think they were overloaded in New York, but perhaps they were overloaded in the Pentagon. Oh wow. Ever in the chat says we had a car phone with unlimited time on it. Speakerphone with mic. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't remember the plan on mine. I almost never used it. Grant's Pants says Nokia phone with the everlasting battery life and the snake game. Oh wow, that takes. I haven't thought about that in forever. Wow. Heracles says Nextel Direct Connect. Getting some blast from the past here. Clark says, I personally spent the first 72 hours after the event coordinating secure satellite links with SOCOM. Oh, wow, interesting. Rise Above says, I was in New Jersey 15 minutes from New York. We had no cell service after the second plane hit. Yeah, that's curious because I remember, I mean, even in the video footage post 9/11, like on the street, there's people talking on cell phones. And the people that I know that were there, they made calls with their cell phones. I don't know the exact times. I can ask them. But you could see people talking on cell phones in the streets afterwards. I don't know. After the second hit also. And throughout. Like when they're evacuating, like on boat, whatever, there's people talking on cell phones all over. Tara says, at least my pager didn't spy on me. Or did it? Did you see that clip of that one CIA guy saying they have recording devices even in toasters? And they had for quite some time? I mean, I wonder, because if military tech is 50 years ahead of civilian, they might have had audio recording tech in the pagers. That sounds like a good idea for a podcast. Phil says, maybe the phones did go out after the second tower. I got a call just after the first tower. I mean, who knows? It might have been based on carrier, too. Some of the carriers may have been ill-equipped for the volume, and other carriers weren't. Or maybe it was intermittent, where it was going in and out. Okay, Rise Above says, we were borrowing each other's phones. Some had services, most didn't. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Blue Unicorn says pagers most certainly did spy on you. Yeah, would it surprise anybody if the NSA actually had all the logs of every message sent on every pager? Would that actually surprise anybody? Grant Pan says toasters. That's why banks used to give them out for free. I don't know. I'm thinking. I don't think. I find it. Maybe it's an appeal to incredulity, logical fallacy. I think it's a little difficult. It's a little because this clip was post 2010, so maybe all the fancy new toasters. I'm thinking toasters from the 80s and early 90s. I don't know if they had any kind of recording devices, but I mean, it might not be unbelievable for newer toasters, newer appliances. Oh, okay. Tara says, not that it would have mattered. It was not a pager that you could write out words. So it was just the numbers, like the really old pagers. Oh, wow. That's terrible. Jen says, I was good friends with FDNY Fire Marshal Rudy Dent. He lost 343 firefighters that fateful day. Rudy passed away from complications from working on the pile. Yeah, that's devastating, too. Just the amount of people that legitimately lost their lives in responding to an event that may not have been as reported. I mean, they're owed explanations more than anybody, them and their families. Blue Unicorn says Fitbits spy on you too. All kinds of things they do. HDTV spy on you. That's why I broke down in 2017 and got a phone. There's no escape. Oh man, there are some escapes, my friend. You gotta learn about other technologies, my friend. First of all, supposedly anything in a Faraday cage should not be able to transmit a signal. I could probably do a whole podcast on that. I don't know if they have some kind of super advanced tech that can transmit signals in and out of a Faraday cage. Maybe they do. But I think at least in the past you were safe in a Faraday cage, or lead or gold. That would block the signals. They even have these cases for your cell phone that are made out of lead. And obviously they're kind of heavy. I don't know if they're thick enough, actually, because it has to be a certain thickness of lead to block the signal. So then you can put it in that case when you're not using it. And same thing for some TVs. If you're buying off-brand, non-smart TVs that aren't connected to the internet and you don't have Wi-Fi, I mean, you can actually even open up some of the TVs and see what it has inside. There's all sorts of videos on how to do that. Obviously, all the newer high-end smart TVs, I don't know if you can stop those, but there are plenty of like off-brand cheapo ones that you could even modify. But anyway, let's get focused here. Let's finish this article. Mark Wahlberg is a Hollywood actor famous for starring in such movies as Boogie Nights, The Perfect Storm, The Fighter, and Ted. Just before 9/11, he was in Boston for a children's charity he ran and was scheduled to return to LA September 11th on Flight 11. But a friend of his told the National Enquirer, quote, the day before, he changed his mind. Instead of flying to LA on Tuesday, he decided to leave Boston Monday night, flying to New York to spend time with friends before flying back to LA, end quote. That last-minute change of plans meant Wahlberg avoided being on the hijacked plane. And again, a couple of these we would expect to occur. Those are called controls. We don't know which, but there should obviously have been at least a couple of cases that might not be suspicious. Another celebrity television personality, Julie Stoffer, a former cast member of MTV's reality show, The Real World. Okay, okay, I don't know. This sounds conspiratorial. Was in everything from The Matrix to The Real World reality TV show, was in Boston for a public appearance and was due to take Flight 11 to visit her boyfriend in LA. After arguing with him on the phone on September 10th, though, she considered canceling the trip but then changed her mind. Stoffer called a friend on the morning of September 11th and asked to be taken to the airport, but the friend persuaded her not to go and see her boyfriend, and so she avoided taking Flight 11. And again, So this is what they said, but we have no way of knowing whether that's true. Eva LaRue, who starred in the ABC soap All My Children and more recently CSI Miami, was booked on one of the planes that hit the World Trade Center, apparently along with her then husband, fellow actor John Callahan, as she intended to visit her family in California. LaRue has not specified whether their plane would have been Flight 11 or 175. But on the night of September 10th, the couple decided to switch to an afternoon flight. LaRue, who was pregnant at the time, has said the reason for this was simply that she didn't want to get up early and fly on the 8 o'clock flight. Well, I mean, it's not like she just learned she was pregnant the day before, or was it? So she would have known that when she booked initially. So I don't know if that story jives either. Actor Edward James Olmos, who starred in the TV show Miami Vice. Shout out to Miami Vice, one of the only old school TV shows that actually holds up. And the 88 movie Stand and Deliver was in Boston on September 10th, giving a public appearance. He was due to take Flight 11 the next morning as he was scheduled to appear at the Latin Grammy Awards on the evening of September 11th, but he decided to take a flight on September 10th instead as he was feeling exhausted. Wait, he was exhausted, so he took the earlier... Wait, what? That doesn't make... If you're that exhausted, don't you need rest? Why would you go to the airport and get on a flight? That's kind of weird. The Latin Grammy Awards were on September 11th. It is possible that actress Anne Hetch, Hech, Anne Hetch, Anne Heck? Is it Heck or Hetch? Or Heschech? And again, the conspiracy angle regarding her, you know, because this article was written in 2014. And Anne Hetch died August 11th, 2022, allegedly. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but she was originally going to be on Flight 11 along with her new husband, Coley LaFoon. What an interesting last name. A freelance videographer and editor, although this hasn't been stated explicitly. Hetch had been in Massachusetts for a booking event. She had considered taking that very flight back to LA, a source close to the actress told the National Enquirer, but after the book signing in Massachusetts, Hetch was asked to do a book signing in Toronto as well. Consequently, instead of heading home to Cali, she went to Toronto. Now she shudders at the thought of how close she came to death. Again, we have no idea who said what to whom and how that all unfolded. Actress Jamie Presley also appears to have been booked on Flight 11. This is kind of crazy. Is it common? Wait, don't these people fly in private jets? Why are these, like, top celebrities flying commercial? And how common is it to have just a flight full of celebrities? When was the last time? I mean, some flights have one celebrity, yes. I mean, you can find video, you can find photos, you know. A flight can possibly have one. Usually no, but once in a while there'll be a celebrity on a commercial flight. If none of these people canceled, that's like a flight chock full of celebrities. When was the last time that happened? Imagine you're a civilian on this flight and you just look around and it's all Hollywood celebrities. This is kind of weird. This is just kind of weird. Does anybody find this weird? Like, when was the last time a commercial flight was jam packed with celebrities? Like, I've flown first class too. I've never seen any celebrities. I mean, I don't know if they'd be in coach or not, but coach or first class. Like, you're hanging out at the gate to get on the flight and it's just all celebrity. Like, are we really being asked to believe this? I mean, this is weird. Am I the only one who finds this weird? I mean, you're just sitting in a flight, you look around, you see Miami Vice actors, Jamie Presley. Like, you just see all, like, Anne Hatch. Like, what? Soap stars. Like, it's just all celebrities. Wahlberg. Like, if they hadn't canceled, like, you're just looking around and it's all celebrities on a commercial flight. This is weird. This is so weird. So Presley canceled her reservation at the last minute. Presley, who starred in films such as Ringmaster and Not Another Teen Movie, and more recently starred in the NBC comedy series My Name is Earl, told Esquire magazine she had been in North Carolina and needed to get to LA. To get there, I had 3 different options, none of which were direct flights, she said. I mean, she's kind of a big time actress. She doesn't fly on private jets. I had 3 different options. One of the options was Raleigh to Boston to LA. She was apparently booked on Flight 11 as she recalled. I canceled it last minute, and that turned out to be the first plane to hit the World Trade Center. The reasons she canceled her reservation, she said, were A, I don't want to get up that early. Well, again, that would have been known when the flight was booked. And B, it's stupid to go around your ass to get to your thumb. Well, again, how did she not know that when it was booked? Like, she knew it was going Boston to LA from Raleigh. And why are all of these celebrities flying commercial? Again, imagine none of them canceled and you're just a regular civilian and you're just hanging out in the airport and it's just all celebrities everywhere. Like, what is going on here? Who's buying this? It's like only celebrities were flying on 9/11. Nobody else was apparent. It's just weird. British comedian Sacha Baron Cohen, the star of such movies such as Borat and Bruno, was reportedly booked on one of the aircraft hijacked on September 11th, although which one is unstated. According to the British newspaper The Sunday People, Baron Cohen told friends how he was booked on a tragic September 11th flight but luckily missed it. Again, imagine none of these celebrities missed their flights. Like, I mean, all these flights are just chock full of celebrities that no longer fly on private jets. Ventriloquist Jay Johnson, who starred in the TV show Soap and Broken Badges, was scheduled to perform for an insurance company in Boston on September 10th and was booked. See, some of these like B, C level celebrities, yeah, that's believable that they'd be flying commercial. But some of these bigger celebrities, that's weird. So, okay, September 10th was booked to fly home into LA the next morning on Flight 11, but a week before the performance, the insurance company called and asked if he could perform it on the morning of September 11th instead of September 10th. Johnson agreed to do it, and his manager moved him to another flight. That change in schedule saved my life, Johnson has commented. I wonder if this insurance company was the same insurance company or a branch or subsidiary insurance company of the one Larry Silverstein used. That would be curious. Julia Child, the famous chef and television personality, was booked on Flight 11 along with her assistant Stephanie Hirsch because she was moving from Massachusetts to a retirement community in Cali. Some of these former celebrities, I guess they'd fly commercial. But again, imagine none of them canceled and you're a random civilian sitting in the middle of that flight you're just looking around and it's just all celebrity. If none of them cancel. As they were making their final preparations for the move, Child and Hirsch already had their plane tickets on American Airlines flight to LA, leaving from Boston's Logan Airport on Tuesday, September 11, 2001. Child's biographer Bob Spitz wrote, but Geoff Drummond, Child's TV producer, had agreed to shoot a video of Child in her kitchen for the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, and the only day all the film crew could make it was September 11th. Child therefore instructed Hirsch to reschedule their flight for the end of the week. I mean, that one actually sounds like it could possibly be legit. Bobby Farrelly, the writer, director, and producer of hit movies, including Dumb and Dumber, There's Something About Mary, and Me, Myself, and Irene. Oh, I totally forgot about Me, Myself, and Irene. I actually saw that movie in the theater. That's when Jim Carrey made it was definitely a downturn type movie. It was like a lot more lewd and crass than his former work. Definitely a downturn. Like, I would say, yeah, he wasn't really that funny in that one. I've only seen it once, but yeah, it definitely did not seem up to snuff from his previous films. So this guy, Farrelly, was living in Boston, made a reservation on flight. Yeah, how is this guy flying commercial? Like, this guy doesn't have a flight. He's a writer, director, producer of all these top Hollywood movies. He doesn't, I mean, doesn't he, even, like, you would think he would have his own private jet, but even if he doesn't have his own, like, you would think he'd be flying on private jets. So he was living in Boston, and he made a reservation on Flight 11. So he doesn't even have an assistant. He made the reservation himself, Bobby Farrelly, on Flight 11 because he had to attend a test screening of his latest movie in Cali on the night of September 11th. But on September 9th, he was phoned by Tom Chirac, a partner at Revolution Studios, who invited Farrelly to attend his annual dinner benefiting the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, which would take place in LA on the night of September 10th. Farrelly agreed to go, and so he called American Airlines. Who's buying? He arranged to fly to LA morning of September 10th instead of the 11th. This change to his schedule, Farrelly has commented, meant Chirac saved my life. Is anybody buying this? Fredrik Thor Fredriksson, what a name. An Oscar-nominated Icelandic producer and director was booked on flight. See, I don't know if I could get through these. Again, imagine none of them cancel, and you're just a private civilian sitting in the middle of these planes, and it's just all celebrities in every seat. Like, is anybody buying this? So Fredrickson's booked on Flight 11 in order to go and meet actor Keith Carradine before they started filming a movie together. Fredrickson was in Toronto at the time, but it was cheaper for him to travel to LA via Boston rather than directly from Toronto. Really? This Oscar nominee is worried about how much the flight costs? He wants to save a few bucks to go via Boston, then he's going to fly out of his way to go to Boston and then LA instead of straight to LA because he needs to save a few bucks? What? On September 9th, he paid an extra $150 and changed his booking to take a direct hold on a second. So he wanted to save a few dollars, however much, but then he paid an additional $150. We're talking about an Oscar-nominated. I don't know if this guy's a millionaire or not, but he must be close if he's Oscar-nominated producer, not just a director, a producer and director of Oscar-nominated films. This guy's worried over $150. So, but then he ends up on September 9th, he pays an extra $150 and changed his booking to take a direct flight from Toronto. The change, quote, came purely out of necessity and not through a premonition, end quote, Frederickson said. Now, this directly contradicts his whole story. Because his whole story, this Oscar nominated Icelandic producer and director, maybe a multimillionaire, maybe a millionaire, but if not, somewhat close, wants to save however much money, but then ends up contradicting the story of saving money by shelling out an additional $150 to change the booking to a direct flight. Is anybody buying any of this? Bueller? We got almost 100 people in the chat. Nobody's buying it. Who's buying this? And not only that, like, these people don't have assistants. This Oscar nominee is booking his own flights trying to save however many dollars. Production designer Tom Duffield flew to Boston the weekend before September 11th to scout a location for the movie The Ring and was scheduled to return to LA Flight 11. Luckily, the Boston Herald reported, he switched his plans at the last minute and extended his stay in Boston a few more days. So this top production designer, I don't know how much money production designers make. Maybe production designers can't afford to fly private jets. Yeah, it says the average is about 60 to 80,000 a year. But I mean, The Ring was a top movie. It was actually a pretty solid movie. I mean, that was Naomi Watts. That was a top movie. He had to have been getting paid more than the average for production designing that. The budget was $48 million on The Ring. Wow. Okay. Anyway. Production. Okay, so Steve Thompson, assistant animator at the Walt Disney Company, had participated in the Canada to U.S. AIDS vaccine bike trek. That sounds legit. Along with a group of his friends, the ride ended in Portland, Maine, and the quickest way for the group to get from there to their homes in L.A. was by taking a flight from Maine to Boston and then flying from Boston to L.A. After finishing the ride on September 9th, Thompson and his friends intended to relax in Portland on September 10th and then fly home the following morning. Consequently, according to Rick Andrioli, now Thompson's husband, the group planned to fly back on American Airlines Flight 11 on September 11th. However, the pop star Madonna had at the last minute, so now we got Madonna involved in this, had at the last minute arranged. I mean, it's kind of hard to get through all this with a straight face. I mean, we're talking, how many spaghetti monsters are in the sky? So Madonna at the last minute arranged an additional concert in LA for her Drowned World Tour that coincided with the completion of the bike ride. Therefore, in order to see their favorite diva in concert, Thompson and his then boyfriend hurriedly bought tickets for the new show and changed their plans, which meant they flew to LA on September 10th and avoided being on the hijacked plane. Remarkably, everyone else in Thompson's group also avoided being on Flight 11. Their reasons, according to Andrioli, included oversleeping and not feeling well. So not just him who changed for the Madonna tickets, but everyone else also just so happened, each and every one of the group, just so happened not to make the flight. I mean, again, imagine being on the plane and you're sitting in the middle of the plane looking around and it's just all Hollywood people. Disney animators, production designers, actors and actresses, movie producers, Oscar-nominated producers and directors. I mean, is there even a single seat left for a non-Hollywood person? Talicia Rags, who also worked for a Hollywood production company, appears to have also taken part in the AIDS vaccine bike trek. In September '01, she was reportedly traveling after participating in a bike-a-thon to raise funds for HIV research. She too had a ticket for Flight 11, but she flew to LA on September 10th because her office called and said it needed her to come back a day earlier than she'd planned. So, did anybody on this vaccine bike trek actually make the flight? That's weird. So, did 100% of people on this bike-a-thon not make that flight for whatever reason? Lisa Beach, a casting director for feature films and television, originally had a reservation on Flight 11. She planned. I mean, just if none of them cancel. So on any given day, so on non-September 11th, so like if you look at the year 2000, on September 11th in 2000, did a civilian on a random flight just look around and they're just always surrounded by just Hollywood people? Like, where are all the other civilians? Non-Hollywood people. She planned to take a short trip to Massachusetts September 6th, returning to LA September 11th, but on the weekend before the trip, she was invited to a party at the home of a producer she'd just worked with on a movie and decided to cancel her trip in order to attend. That decision saved my life, Beach has commented. On September 11th, when she heard the plane that hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center was Flight 11, Beach raced upstairs to look at my e-ticket, which confirmed that I would have indeed been on the flight had I changed my plans. Okay. Let me just pose a theory. Let me postulate here an innocent explanation here. What if this was some kind of cosmic consciousness final destination? Let's not fall for false dichotomies. So obviously the Bohemian Grove, Bilderberg, Illuminati, Hollywood dialed in people, so they knew they canceled whatever. But what if the people lower on the totem pole, what if they're just picking up some kind of cosmic consciousness over this universe-altering event, and they just get a feeling in the back of their mind to not do the flight? They don't know why. They just happen to not do the flights. Because that could possibly pose, like, again, let's not fall for false dichotomies. Clearly there were many people who were in the know. But there could have also been an unusually high percentage of people that were not in the know that simply had a feeling they couldn't explain. Cute kanji in the chat saying, how many seats does this plane have? All of them plus all the non-celebrities plus all the ones who are actually on the flight. I mean, according to the amount of canceled celebrities, there would have been no room for non-celebrities on a regular commercial flight. I mean, who's buying this? Can you imagine if they did like an alternate universe movie where the planes didn't get, or whether they did or didn't get hijacked? Just a movie of all these people on the plane. like, why are most of them even flying commercial? That's kind of hard to believe, especially like the top dog producers, directors, like all the top A-listers. Why the heck are they flying commercial? And first class doesn't even have that many seats. So some of them would have had to have been in coach. So in some first-class flights, especially back in '01, some of them only had 10 seats. Like 10 to 16. 10 to 14. That's interesting. So that means a lot of them would have been flying. Who believes that all these celebrities are booking coach? Like, who believes this? Oh man. I mean, this is just so crazy. Like, I've never gone through each and every one of these accounts before, but so we're talking 10 to 14 first class seats, and all of these celebrities are booking, and some of them are allegedly booking themselves without an assistant. So far, only one of these people said they had an assistant booking. Like, we're talking A-list producers, directors, actors, actresses. They're flying coach, really? Again, like once in a while you see on Twitter like a photo of a celebrity flying coach for whatever reason. Like one. On like the odd flight out of like hundreds of flights, there's one. These flights would have had dozens, dozens of celebrities in coach on the same flight. Lisa Harrison has recalled that she was supposed to be on one of the planes that crashed in the World Trade Center, although she did not specify whether this was Flight 11 or Flight 175. But she said, I changed my reservation at the last minute. Harrison, now a best-selling author of young adult novels, was working for MTV in New York at the time. Again, is there not a single non-entertainment individual booking these tickets? Like, where are all the blue-collar people? Or even white collar. Where are random office workers? Where are accountants, lawyers, doctors, random people flying to visit family? Like, where are they? It's like all celebrities. Like, what? Tom Werner was in a meeting in Boston on the afternoon of September 10th to discuss his interest in buying the Boston Red Sox baseball team and had booked a seat on Flight 11 the next morning. I'm not buying this. If you're going to be buying a baseball team, what is this guy, a billionaire? Or I don't know, how many tens or hundreds of millions of dollars does this guy have? In what universe is someone looking to buy the Boston Red Sox flying commercial? In what universe? And not only that, apparently he doesn't have an assistant and he's doing the booking himself. Werner was a partner and co-founder of Carsey Werner Mandenbach, Hollywood's largest indie TV studio, and a longtime friend of Bill and Hillary Clinton. So Bill Clinton's buddy, partner and founder of Hollywood's largest indie TV studio, buying the Red Sox or looking to buy the Red Sox, is flying commercial? The meeting ended earlier than Warner expected, so he arranged to fly to New York to spend the evening with his girlfriend, television host Katie Couric. This guy's flying commercial? Consequently, according to journalist and author Seth Mnuchin, instead of taking Flight 11, he flew to L.A. from New York on September 11th. He flew to L.A. from New York. However, the FBI document that lists passengers who canceled reservations for Flight 11. So apparently this is all verified by FBI documents. These are not celebrities looking for attention, making up stories. Or if they are, the FBI is in on it and fudged the documents. The FBI document that lists passengers who canceled reservations for Flight 11 contradicts this account, according to which Werner changed his plans late in the afternoon of September 10th. Instead, it states that Werner's reservation on Flight 11 was canceled September 6th. Now, I don't know if that makes it more or less suspicious. To me, the number one thing that's suspicious is that this possible billionaire is flying commercial. But the further in advance it was canceled, I would say the less suspicious it looks. Again, imagine you're a civilian on this flight. And it's just all billionaires and Hollywood A-listers when you look around, flying coach. Oh, man. I was not expecting this level of goofery in official accounts. I mean, then again, we shouldn't really be surprised, I guess. I mean, 9/11, for whatever reason, this might just be one giant Illuminati humiliation ritual. Paris Barclay, an award-winning television producer and director who worked on shows like NYPD Blue, was booked on Flight 11 with his partner Christopher Mason, an executive in the food industry. The couple was due to return to LA on September 11th after spending a month in Boston. At the last minute, they decided to fly back early on the night of September 10th. Quote, We thought, why hang around another day? End quote. Mason has recalled. So they didn't have that thought on September 9th, or 8th, or 7th, or 6th. So they spent a whole month. They only had that thought on September 10th. And again, why are they booking? So again, first class only has 10 to 14 seats, and we actually don't know if those were also booked out by non-Hollywood people. So potentially all of these millionaires and possible billionaires are booking coach on commercial flights. Oh man. Like, what is going on here? Like, seriously, what is going on here? People connected to the music industry narrowly avoided being on Flight 11. Some individuals' connection to the music industry were booked on Flight 11, but their lives were saved due to changes in their schedules. One such person was Leanne Luttrell, the wife of Brian Luttrell, a member of the Backstreet Boys, one of the most successful boy bands of all time. So hold on a second. So the Backstreet Boys, in the time of the Black and Blue tour, one of the most successful tours of all time, this guy's wife is flying commercial, possibly coach. While the band was going to head to Toronto, Leanne was set to go to LA September 11th on Flight 11. But on September 10th, she told her husband she did not want to take the flight. She said, quote, "I feel really, really bad about going. I don't know what it is," end quote. Brian told her she needed to take the flight, but Leanne had recalled, "Something kept telling me, you can't go." She finally broke down and said, "I can't do it." Brian therefore told her, quote, "God, if you feel that strongly about it, cancel it." And so fortunately, she avoided being on the hijacked plane. The most suspicious thing about all of this is that these people are flying commercial. Like, we're not talking about, like, the B, C-list celebrities, maybe. Like, I mean, this is crazy. The Backstreet Boys were so huge in 01. I mean, wow. I mean, that's just weird, but I hadn't read this account before, but is this some kind of cosmic consciousness thing where she just had a bad feeling about it? Then again, I mean, would the wife of I mean, I don't know how far in the know they were, but the most unbelievable thing about all of this to me is that these people are flying commercial, let alone coach. Like, there's just not that many first class seats. So they couldn't have all booked first class. And again, a lot of the first class tickets could have already been taken by business people or whoever that we don't know. We don't know they're, non-celebrities. So most of these millionaires and possible billionaires could have been flying coach? Like, who believes this? All right, this actually I mean, he actually went through all 350 accounts. I will go through all of them, but I'm going to wrap it up for tonight just because it is getting a little late now. We've been going for hours here. I actually didn't think that he actually went through each and every account, but we're going to do it because this is MindShock. So we'll be back for more in the 9/11 Live Q&A Part 2 on this episode of the passengers canceling. But to me, one of the craziest things is that supposedly all these A-listers, millionaires, multimillionaires, and billionaires are booking coach. They're booking commercial coach. Because otherwise they would have been on other flights if they all did first class. There's not enough first class seats. But anyway, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Hope everybody found another edition of the MindShock podcast interesting and informative. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.